Out of cruel space into a wider galaxy, Part 11. RAK and roll, Shadows of Centris. And boom goes the dynamite, Amity notes as the cultist guards suddenly realized that they'd been firing on non-existent police officers while the real ones were rushing in from the side. It was those kinds of life-altering revelations he just adored to see. Well, I guess I need to put this away then, Reggie notes calmly as he starts breaking down the mortar he'd set up just in case. After getting his training for the thing, the man had been itching to use it, but hadn't had any opportunity for some indirect fun. Probably for the best, Koa remarks. I know, still, Reggie admits as he collapses the components down and tucks them away into an expanded pocket. Amity smirks at the sight. Yes, he's technically the adept of the three, but do you really need that when the other guys are pocket artillery and a walking weapons platform? Ah, well, who wants to eat? Lunch rush is finished, and it's cheaper to hand out the overstock than use stasis, Amity asked. Sure, the area's mostly stable anyways, so, Koa states before suddenly turning, and his rifle is held out at the figure he can't fully see. Identify yourself. The sun is shining, the cloaking woman states, but the ice is slippery. Amity glibly replies, and the invisible hand of the woman has a data chit balanced upon it. Thank you. You'd think that would calm down a little with all the cults actively fighting and moving hard. Koa notes. Not really. More excitement means more notes are getting passed around. So it should break about even. Sure, most of the everyday silliness is being set aside, but the sheer urgency means other things are running out and... Reggie tries to explain his thought process with a few gestures before a METAC blurs past him, and he now has a pair of data chits in his hand. He holds them up between his fingers, as demonstrated. They have a slight chuckle as Amity lets his illusions finally fade to allow the police to fully pounce on the kill-crazy women who had decided to come out guns blazing when their little country club was pinged. By the way, do you guys know exactly who this gaggle of idiots are? I think they're called the starts with an M, Reggie says, snapping his fingers as he tries to recall things. Mama look, Koa throws out. No, it was M-Y, my Corin, my something, Reggie asks. Oh, this is bugging me. I thought it was M-I. Millaluk, the Millaluk, he says with a smile before pausing. I don't know what it means. Neither do I, but does it matter? The Millaluk were being moronic, so we meddled and matched them. Now let's mosey my men, Amity says with a smile. He's getting better at those. It didn't even sound like that much of a stretch. Koa notes as he stores his massive rifle, and all three men get moving. It doesn't take long for them to make note of police cruisers soaring overhead and heading to a very different place from the one they just assisted in. But since their communicators are silent, they're not being tagged in to help. And often unwanted help can be worse than none. So they don't follow. So do you think that... Koa begins before all three of their communicators go off simultaneously. Oh boy, here we go. Stand by for communications with Observer Wu. Amity reads out loud. Why would he want to talk with us? We're three guys who wander around and bumble about. What's so interesting? You mean besides the fact that we're basically scouts and patrol officers on an alien world that routinely go to many different spires with massively different laws, populations, environmental expectations, and Reggie begins to list off. I was being sarcastic, Amity says. Oh, well, no reason then, probably random chance. Reggie amends and Amity rolls his eyes at touch. He's an observer. He wouldn't be much good at his job if he didn't at least glance at everyone. He likely regards the list of humans outside of cruel space as a checklist to personally interview, one after the other. Right now, he's just getting his bearings and balance, I'll wager. Koa considers out loud. To say nothing of the idea of him following people with a pair of binoculars and just watching them, Amity says, conjuring the image of binoculars that he holds in front of his eyes. The wide end of them seemingly a gigantic pair of blinking eyes that Reggie swipes through to dispel the image. His title is Observer, not Stalker, Reggie says. The difference between the two is governmental approval and little else, Amity says, and Reggie just concedes the point. It takes a few more minutes for them to get to the car they used to get to this spire, and a few after that to fly to the one where Amity's girls were. The first they ran into was actually Abigail, The cousin of the august Speaker of the Council was clearly excited to see him, if the fact she swooped down into his arms and locked up his lips with her own. After she showed no signs of wanting to stop, both other men walked around them and into the diner. There are some enthusiastic greetings from the girls inside, and the quick pointing outside has the rabbis working the till and the one waiting the tables rush out to get some sugar from their man. There's a reason we put the more energetic ones on the outside, one of the cooks notes. The small warren of rabbis liked to work things in a total of 6 shifts and took 2 each day. That way there was always a full staff, and they got all the rest they needed to keep the diner open endlessly and efficiently. No kidding. So how much overstock is there today? Not as much as normal. A lot of girls are struggling to find time to cook for themselves for some reason. Funny that. Yes, it's almost like everyone's really busy for some strange reason. I wonder what could cause such a thing. Koa asks. Yes, I wonder. Classified, Reggie states. Right, because a massive scan of the entire planet can be classified. Everyone knows something scared someone higher up. But what was it? Classified, Reggie taunts. How are your girls holding up? Shireen and Misty are on official business on the Dauntless to get them both the hell out of Dodge. They're nervous, so a bit of work is a new set of eyes on our holodeck coding and a fashion consultant for our potential future uniforms gives them both a distraction in a safe place. It's adorable that you pull strings to get them both into safety. The cook notes. You had a similar offer. I saw Amity make it. Koa remarks. No one's going to bother with us. We're not important enough for the crazy people to notice. Crazy people are just that. Crazy, Reggie remarks. They are. Now a quick heads up. There's going to be, Koa begins to say before their communicators start going off. Crap. New ship is coming, and on it is an observer who wants to talk to us, apparently. Mind if we take a corner booth? Go ahead, the rush is over and most people are ordering out. Amity has to rush in to sit next to them as they set up the communicators. Have I caught you at a bad time? Somewhat, sir. We're often on patrol around Centrus, and we received our warning a fair way away from the Dauntless. We are, however, in a trusted and safe location. Very good. I need to know more about the world I'm heading to. What is the on-the-ground perspective of Centrus? Could you be more specific about what you're looking for? There are all sorts of different things to consider. Is it security, culture, language, fashion, local laws, something else? I'm looking for how it compares to an Earth city or town. Well, they're very much a city with towering buildings that can induce a sensation of being among giants. There are a few places without large crowds and innumerable different building styles, but there's always reliable walkways and general driving and soaring areas as well. So jaywalking isn't as much as an issue as it is in most cities. You won't interrupt traffic unless they're coming in for a landing. The roads are more landing strips and parking areas with walkways next to them. Reggie explains, I see. There are also areas where they seem to randomly have roundabouts or sudden turns to avoid specific areas. But once you learn more about them, you realize they're basically walkways for those that can naturally fly or jump so powerfully that the line between a jump and flight is more academic. Reggie continues, And culture? Observer Wu asks. Well, culture shifts around a lot depending on the area you're in. The galaxy at large has one where men are often protected to the point of coddling, or possibly suffocating them. If you're looking for a man in public, look for an oddly dense bit of crowd that seems to be defensive, because their families are protective. Koa explains this time. Or look to those who are followed by a crowd because they're lashing out as they try to find some kind of purpose. It's not universal. More than half of the men of the galaxy easily find enough in life to be content. But those that don't, well, if it's not petty, it's dramatic. The Undaunted sees a lot of them. They have preferential recruitment. Why? Because less than half of 1% of a galactic population is a recruiting pool so massive that the name tags of their uniform could strip mine entire continents with ease. Koa answers and Observer Wu nods. Oh, please, get them all together after a few years of recruitment and it would have a gravitational pull strong enough to replace the moon around Earth, Reggie remarks. I'm not kidding, by the way. I did the math on my spare time. Recruitment is going up and up and up, and there are enough to recruit that quintillions are on the menu. Quintillions. Centris is one of the more population-dense worlds in the galaxy, but not the most, and there is not an insignificant number of worlds like this. To say nothing of less overdeveloped ones, which are in much higher numbers, and with each level they go down in development, the more worlds there are, Reggie says. Quintillions. And that's if one is only considering 1/2 of 1%. Observer Woos remarks as he looks off, "Our population is in the billions. 1,000 more for each person gives us trillions. Doing it again is quadrillions, and then we have to do it again to get quintillions." Kind of hard to consider, isn't it? Reggie asks. It is, Observer Woo notes. Everything we do that doesn't fizzle and die will rapidly grow beyond anything humanity has ever accomplished. Yes, in some ways it already has. It took people like Genghis Khan decades to shape the world. It takes some of our teams weeks, if not days or even hours, to affect even more people over a wider area. Reggie says, "Oh, calm down. There's no need to get so dramatic," Amity remarks as he reclines a little more. He waves his hand, and the image of a spire with all its tiers appears. Of course we can do more with higher numbers, literal magic, and immensely powerful technology. Grade school math is harder to figure out than that. A world with giant abstract Christmas trees for city structures with all the shiny bits and lights and decorations? Well, duh, it's different. Amity's little sculpture of a spire is now shining with lights, the glass windows of skyscrapers, and the lights and images of the traffic around them, until the literally shining manors at the very top of spires shine like a star on top of a Christmas tree. It's a whole world of this silliness, with great big fake continents flying above the planet like a shining ring, all full of girls so desperate for a man that all he has to do to get more tail than he's ever even imagined is to say yes. Calm down. Things are weird but fun. Don't forget that the modern hobby is conspiracy, even if it's a dark garden club about the best way to grow tomatoes, Koa remarks as he pulls out the data chits and chips he had been given. Reggie then stacks them up, and it stands next to the image of the spire and actually rises above it. Granted, 99 times out of 100, they're completely harmless like that, but there are so many that they tower above the spires themselves, Observer Wu states, both on this table and in real life. Throw a rock in a crowd and hit 3 people, you'll have also hit 7 cultists or conspirators, Amity says with a grin. Makes it fun when you start to poke at them. You get all kinds of hilarious reactions. I can imagine. I doubt it. This is the kind of crazy that needs to be seen firsthand. Amity says before nodding as he sees another courier run in. Check to see what's going on. Clearly consider them as their drop-off target and then dismiss it before leaving. It's a lot of fun, though. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 12. H. Herbert's 100 Harem. Well, that didn't take long, Herbert remarks as he gets the answer. People are already moving at his instruction, and he's simply informing the Council of things in a dramatic way. After all, he just got their own forces to move alongside his own. The reports about to come in needed explanation. Oh? So you found our target? 37 potential targets. There were 50 people we narrowed things down to, but several of them were already either in our custody in some way accounted for or dead. 2 are dead at any rate. Anyways, the other 11, while not accounted for on Centris, are accounted for off Centris. So unless I start getting evidence of body doubles, I'm going to assume they're off the suspect list. Never assume, young man. There could always be a body double, someone calls out, and he gives them a lidded and thoroughly unimpressed look. Very well then, the entirety of the Centris population is once more on the suspect list, he says, turning around as if he's about to leave, and there is a huge amount of protest at the very idea. So can I assume body doubles are off the table until we receive proof of them being on it? How did you narrow down our suspect list? The top 3 members of the Darnaxian concurrence were the financier, an unknown Tret, and an unknown Alpha. We found the financier, or should I say, we found the victim of a con who is offering her complete cooperation. Who? A Miss Gina Bleat. She came into a small inheritance and then was promptly conned out of it by the higher-ups in the organization who cut ties with her when they got what they wanted. A good chunk of the assets are still in one piece, so when this investigation finishes, she gets her life back on track. Or at least she gets a steady source of income without much worry again. And she was able to give you some useful information? She was able to name several organizations that the higher members of the Darnaxian concurrence were on the bad side of, and even better, she was able to definitively name several time frames where she knew their exact locations. So we just needed to check who was accounted for at those times and who was not. This took the most time, but narrowed our suspect list down from dozens of digits long to a simple few thousand. Still too big, though, so we narrowed it with who were known to have negative interactions with the groups that the higher-ups complained about, leaving us with our current number. Any questions? What about those 13 other people? Yes, 2 are dead. However, the other 11 are all either in custody or being tracked by the authorities legally for one reason or another. We're going after the other ones first because they could more easily pull a runner on us, Herbert says, and there's some nodding. Now, are there any further questions? This Miss Bleat, is she anyone of import? Well, pushing aside the philosophical assertion that all people are of at least some import, Miss Bleat is an heiress of the Zorian conglomeration fortune, but is very, very far down the inheritance list. So if any of you recognize her, that is likely why. Herbert explains, and the looks of realization tell him that Miss Bleat had been niggling at a few of them. Poor girl got scammed? She was needled, nagged, and lied to over and over until it finally stuck. And when they got what they wanted, they cut her loose. The assets she lost were used to pay for all the lower-ranked salaries and kept the Darnaxian concurrence alive. Herbert explains before his communicator goes off, as well as many of those around him. It's a quick update. They have the first 5 women, and a stream is negotiating with the 6th. Sometimes things just lined up in her line of work, which was kind of the point. Infiltrate at the busy work angle of things, and people will make a point of making sure you stay there. No one likes busy work, but everyone needs it. Harriet offers a fake sneeze, a begging for apology while rubbing her nose with her ring finger 3 times before tapping the table twice. Private Stream nods minutely. She's recognized and is willing to offer assistance. Are you Miss Veron's 420 meeting? She asks, knowing the answer is no. We're more important, ma'am. Now just go back to your emails and nothing needs to go wrong. A Panceros woman dressed in a low-profile armor, bandoliers of knives and 4 pistols of differing make, says without bothering to stand up fully. Private Stream just gestures at her as if asking, see what I have to work with. She merely offers a mild smirk in response, and he rolls his eyes. Do you have any form of ID, or am I going to need to call security? Harriet asks as she maintains her cover. After all, if shit is going down and she's in the trusted inner circle, jackpot. Here we are, ma'am, one of the Carib officers accompanying the stream says, as she hands over a badge for her to inspect. Harriet really has to bite down on the urge to call this gathering a zoo and simply examines it. Someone of her cover's skill level would accept it, and her own additional skills tells her it's legit too. The fact that Stream hasn't given any warning motions yet seals it, and she nods. All right, but Miss Tiaria does not like unexpected interruptions. I'll announce, she begins to say before the Panceros stalks forward, rises up on her hind legs, and grabs the door handle. Hey, wait! You can't just barge in there. She could be... Hi-ya! The shrill voice of Miss Tiaria calls out, and a blast of energy is dodged by the Panceros as the Lopin in the group tackles the rest out of the way. Miss Tiaria! Unexpected and very rude guests. She calls over, barely able to resist the urge to laugh. Tiaria may have looked like an elegant elven maiden from fantasy with an ornate purple tattoo down half her body. But she spoke and acted like Miss Piggy. Impatient too. I have appointments, Tiaria huffs. We are here on council business, the Panceros protests. What could possibly be so important that you need to interrupt my day? Tiaria demands as she stomps out. The huffy woman was an absolutely menace to deal with. She went off at the slightest warning, ate through her secretaries at a rate that made her seem addicted. But she liked Harriet, or at least she didn't scream at her every hour on the hour. Miss Tiaria, you are under arrest. We were coming for a simple conversation and escort. But since you want to fight it, the Panceros begins to say, as Private Stream wriggles out of the pile and walks up beside her. That's enough, Stream says before smiling up at Tiaria. Synthetic smiles mean little to me, little synth, she says, and Stream shrugs. Okay, well, I'm going to ask nice anyways. Would you please come with us? We really do need to talk, and it's really important. If you make us force the issue, it'll just take a lot more time and trouble and look really bad. So please spare yourself the trouble and just play nice. Please, Private Stream asks her and receives a scowl. You think I'm an idiot? I know that behind that sweet little voice is probably some overstuffed idiot girl who couldn't get a real man if her life depended on it. She snarls down before pausing and considering. Tell you what, though, if you're woman enough to show up and talk to me in person and not through a little synth puppet, then I'll go with you. No fuss. No fuss, no muss? Private Stream asks. No fuss, no muss, she confirms. All right, stand by, the Private Stream says, and Harriet swallows a smile. The little synthetic body holds up his hands, and there's a slight waver in the axiom, until there's a sudden burst and the tiny hands of the stream are on either side of a gigantic wrist. Harriet hides her laughter behind a gasp of surprise as she beholds the Titan Squad member, one lacking a proper shirt but having a clear set of implants going down his back and a pair of shades with clear digital readouts on it. He has the Undaunted brand in the upper part of his back and an extensive axiom tattoo surrounding it that resembles angel wings and, from what Harriet can tell, is hardening his skin to such a degree that you can likely bounce bullets off him. Hello there, the big man said, and he opens a cargo pocket on his pants and tucks the synth body away. Now then, as agreed, no fuss, no muss. Come with us. Tell me, do you think it's funny to toy with a maiden's heart? Mildly, but the actual reason is because the little boy is more likely to be ignored than the slab of man that I am. Now then, as you agreed, come with us, please. The Titan states, and she frowns. What's this about? She asks. Ma'am, please. This is important. What is this about? She asks again as Harriet receives a notice. Miss Tiaria, your 420 is here, Harriet states. And they're early too, Tiaria exclaims in a fury. Then she turns to the group again with a furious look in her eye. My time is valuable, and if you think I'm going to entertain a bunch of thugs for hire and their stripper mascot for 1 second longer, then you are grievously mistaken. Good thing that we're none of those. You are coming with us, madam. Do not make us force the issue. The Titan says, and Tiaria looks up at him with disdain before sniffing. You couldn't on your best day, she states. Ma'am, you are officially... The Panceros begins, and then everything seems to invert in the axiom, and the crowd are suddenly gone. Harriet raises her eyebrows in shock. There, that was easy enough. No doubt those thugs aren't paid enough to deal with what just happened. I doubt they'll be back, Tiaria states. Tell my appointment to wait until their proper time. I need a few moments to compose myself. I'll tell her you're powdering your nose, ma'am, Harriet says in a stunned tone. Powder? A face this perfect? Oh, no. I will never need anything of the sort. Still, stall them. Ta darling, Tiaria says suddenly, made of sugar and flowers. Dauntless, where are we? Jurgen demands the moment he arrives in the teleport location. It had happened very fast and had blown past his crude attempts at axiom use. Hopefully the agent in that woman's office will be able to do something, but this is still not good. Your beacon puts you on level 1 of Shiona Spire. No man's land, run by the All-Lady. A very large multi-slobe is the one-woman gang that has the area in a death grip. His contact states, confirmed, restate what the species of the opposition is. What is a multi-slobe? During the reproduction cycle of a slobe, many unusual things can happen. A multi-slobe is when a splitting fails and the parent slobe survives, as opposed to a hloshab, or death-born. The mostly formed new slobe is instead incorporated into their anatomy, creating a distinct bump on the core. Some slobe cultures have severe taboo against them, but others regard them as grander slobes. All-Lady is a multi-slobe who has 25 additional portions of her being on record, and likely far more off-record. Each one allows her to multitask and use her body with every greater precision and sheer mass on an exponential scale. Assume you are seen by her and within arm's reach of her at all times. Copy that, we'll attempt to just leave peacefully. That's the smart thing to do. Our eyes and Yaria's office. Are they still in place? We have no emergency indications from our agent, his handler says, and Jurgen nods before letting the link fade. You have someone posted there? Why didn't you tell us? The Panceros demands. Our agent is there for another reason entirely. It's just happy coincidence they were near and can still listen for us after this mess. Jurgen states before there's a cracking sound, and he has a laser cannon with a pistol grip in his hand out and pointing directly at the face of a building that has suddenly burst away from the rest. You are very cordially, a smooth feminine voice sings out as a third of the building face splits again to reveal a dark blue slow B figure. Cordially! A second dark blue slow B exclaims as she moves her third of the building away. Cordially! A third joins in as she moves out from behind her shield. You are very cordially invited to a party? They say at once. Jurgen, there are no cores in that building. The controlling mind is nowhere near those extensions. They're just goo. Dispatch whispers into Jurgen's ear and the man nods. And you can be assured. Be assured. Be assured. And you can be assured that there is no refusing. They sing together before retracting into the building and slamming the side of it back into place before another series of crunches can be heard from deeper into the level. Dispatch! The fuck just happened? The cameras are being covered up, but I got a good look anyways. They just blocked off all the elevators simultaneously. All Lady is covering the entirety of that level, well beyond her stated capacity in this database. We have emergency recall on standby if you need it. Options, dispatch. What are the options? We have a peaceful moment, but... He turns to look at his team. Things can very easily go wrong here. We have another team heading towards Mysteria. You just get yourselves out safely and without destabilizing the situation down there. Minimize damage. Dispatch orders him, and he nods. Copy that, he says before turning to the team. All right, ladies. A reintroduction is in order. I am Agent Jurgen Dukas, a sergeant in the Titan Squad and an active member of the Deep Stream Initiative. I am no longer going to do the cute routine until such time as you are all out of danger. I am immune to laser, plasma, thermal, and electrical attacks, and highly resistant to kinetic, which means that I want you all behind me at all times. I am your shield, understood? How kinetic resistant are you? Standard rail or coil impacts are painful and little else. That's quite the defense. Thank you. Out of Cruel Space, into a Wider Galaxy, Part 13. HOH. Herbert's 100 Harem and Harriet the Spy. Miss Tiaria's 420 meeting is stewing until the exact moment she's let in. Harriet decides to ping her in a few moments early, so she enters in at exactly 4:20. That should count, right? Tiaria likes her weird power plays. Miss, you're 4:20. Miss Verona's here, Harriet says. She's still somewhat early Metalia. Tiaria chides her in a sing-song tone. Harriet looks at the clock. 15 seconds off. Yes, well, I figure by the time she gets to the door, she'll be right on time. I wouldn't want any of your meetings late, ma'am, Harriet says, and there's a delighted tittering sound from Tiaria. Of course. I understand. Do send him in, but not 1 second before 4:20, Tiaria states, and Harriet sighs. Yes, ma'am, she says as she holds out her communicator and gestures for Miss Varon to rise. She then holds up her hand and times it just as the time turns to 4:20. Miss Varon is here for your 4:20 appointment, ma'am, she says, opening the door. There is a smile on Tiaria's face as she lets the woman in. Clearly, her power play of directing exactly when anyone can move or act has played off well for her, which means she'll be in a good enough mood to let her guard down. And with Miss Varon's full attention on Tiaria's power play, she doesn't notice Harriet slip a small device to listen in. She then heads back to her desk and goes over the silly woman's emails before summarizing them all for her. The sheer combination of pride, laziness, and entitlement from the woman was letting Harriet walk all over and around her without her even seeing it as a bad thing. She sends out some emails, copies the email for a backup just in case, and then places the backup data chit in a communicator to send the backup to intelligence. Because when the job is being done for you, you can do it mostly on autopilot. Her communicator receives a text. Info received. Has target acted off since teleport? She replies to this with a simple no, and there are no further questions. She's where she needs to be, and no amount of panicking, acting up, or other such affairs will improve things, especially as second team on the way, in official uniform with backup, especially as she just has to lean back and watch the damn show. This promises to be interesting, if nothing else. She surrounds us. The all-lady is everywhere, the Carib officer with him states in a rising panic, and Jurgen nods calmly to try and defuse the situation and keep everyone sane and reasoned. Yes, I think it's safe to assume that wherever we stand is in her control. So what do we do? The Lopen officer asks as panic creeps into her voice. We calm down and deal with this like rational adults. All lady wants to speak with us, so we shall speak with her. If she's capable of speech, then she's capable of reason. And if she's capable of reason, then she can be reasoned with. So let's reason with her before we try doing something that might hurt someone, Jurgen explains. Exactly. Big guy here has it on the nose. We've been invited to meet with her, so she wants something from us, even if it's just company during a snack or someone to talk to. So let's see what she wants. The Pansero states as she starts looking around again. A tendril of dark blue slime is sticking out of a wall and beckoning at them. This way. The group turns to where she's gesturing and sees the tendril that suddenly increases its mass a few hundred times over to turn into the shape of a tall woman, bracing against both walls and waving at them. Before any of them can ask her anything, she puts a finger to her lips and her form shifts back into a tendril that retracts into the building. Come on, Jurgen says. Does anything faze you? Another officer, this one a Nagasha wearing the tri-tight ladies' colors, asks. Oh, this is weird as hell, don't get me wrong. But no amount of gawking at it gets things done. So let's go, Jurgen states as he starts heading down the way. Remember, stay behind me, and if I tell you to get to different cover, get to it. And you're in charge? Why? The Lopen demands, and he turns around and crouches down until he's face to face with the woman who's 9 feet tall on her hind legs. Currently, because I have the biggest gun, the best armor, and am willing to use both, Jurgen says with his nose almost touching hers. Any other questions? She licks him, and he jerks his head back in response. Then she laughs. Thought so! Big tough guy can't take a little kiss. Lady, this is neither the time nor the place. You are going to act like a professional, or I'm going to guarantee you see a court-martial. Jurgen growls down at her as he wipes his face. Calm down, it's just a joke. Wrong time and wrong place, Jurgen asserts and turns around when he hears something and sees a tendril of all lady with a communicator held out, recording everything. We need to go, now! He starts leading the way with purpose, not listening to any of their protests as he starts going down the indicated road. Oh, thank you kindly for accepting the invitation. We are most grateful for your friendliness, all lady says all around him. Is there anything in particular you want? Going so far out of your way to get something is a bit odd. Jurgen asks out loud to get her talking and see if his handler can get some kind of profile on her. Oh, there are many things I want. Right now, I just want to see what kind of guests I have in my home. Your home? Madam, unless I'm much mistaken, we are on a public road and arrived in a public square. Jurgen asks out loud. Oh, little one, this whole level is my home, and if we're being honest, it's a little cramped down here, she replies, and the floor shifts and cracks before settling. See, I can't even stretch without brushing by you. I see, Jurgen states. Okay, yeah. No way in hell she's only got 25 extra gross on her. You're dealing with about the most literal interpretation of a one-woman army as possible. If she's covering the entire level, as she just implied, she would need to at least be the equivalent of 100 people at once, all working in perfect concert to the same goal, his handler states. But it's a weakness, too. Target that big, and it's impossible to miss. If you get near the core, I'll tell you, but the sensors on you aren't picking anything up yet. It's not like she'd expose something so valuable to strangers. No, but control of her gel-like extensions gets harder and harder the further from the core they get. So for practical reasons, it has to be nearby, to say nothing of the fact that all the gel will lead back to the core. No exception, it requires an unbroken link. But Axiom portals can toy with that, Jurgen mutters. Yes, that's the tricky part. I can sense some portals from the sensors on your belt, but we don't have the stronger stuff on you to let me get their exact location. We weren't expecting this, so we'll have to make it work. Do we have a number? Less than 5, more than 2. Why can't you just say 3 or 4? Why can't you fit through a normal doorway? His handler snaps back. Ha ha, jackass, Jurgen mutters. What's going on up there? The Ponceros asks, and Jurgen glances back, noticing that above and just behind them is a tendril holding what appears to be a generic female head made of gel. I'm in contact with my team still. My glasses have a camera, microphone, and tiny speakers next to my ears. And what have they told you? Only that our hostess is much, much more than the official documentation on her says she is. Clearly, Jurgen states. Clearly, the head of All Lady states, and as the women turn to regard it, it loses its coherency and form and is retracted along with the entire tendril. There is the slight sound of grinding, and Jurgen turns to see a few bricks of a nearby building move aside as a tendrils of gel pours out to form a woman reclining in the air. Keep coming, kiddos. I want to have a chat. And we can't have it out here because what kind of host would I be? And what kind of guest would you be for that matter? All Lady asks before smiling, far wider than anyone with bones or skin can, and then retracts the tendril back into the building. The bricks are then moved back into place. What kind indeed, Jurgen notes before another tendril emerges from the distance and beckons them. Dispatch, how many in total are registered to living on this level? Hold on, I'm looking it up. The meeting between Tiaria and Miss Vaughan had clearly gone well, as Tiaria is laughing daintily as the woman leaves. Harriet holds up a data slate with the summary of the woman's emails on it for her perusal and returns to her going over the accounting details. After Miss Vaughan leaves, Tiaria turns to Harriet. Matalia, darling, do be a dear and cancel all further meetings with the Miss Vaughan. I think she's too stupid to work with. Right. Okay. Anything you'd like to say to her about this? Or am I just canceling her, ma'am? Oh, yes, of course. Do tell her that if she's such an unbelievable idiot that she can't even tell when she's been bugged by a rival company, then no amount of bribery or blackmail can make up for it, Tiaria says before growing more and more angry and looking like she wants to strangle someone as her axiom tattoos start glowing brightly. Then she's suddenly standing normally and titters into the back of her gloved hand. Or something like that, darling. I'm sure you can figure something out. Of course, ma'am. Is there anything you'd like to put into the now freed up time? Or do you just want it left empty? Leave it empty for now. I'm sure something will come up. Now, off to work, dear. Of course, ma'am, Harriet chimes before Tiaria flounces back into her office. She lets out a sigh of relief before the door suddenly opens again, and Harriet sits up suddenly. And Matalia, darling? Yes. Good work, she says before closing the day and letting Harriet breathe freely again. She quickly puts things in and goes through her update routine of backing things up, sending a copy to the undaunted right under the idiot's nose. And as she starts going back to the accounting work, a notice comes up from the secretary on the lower levels. Yes? Could you please inform Miss Tiaria that we have an official team sent by the council to speak with her? Please. They're ignoring me and going right for the office. I will, Harriet says before buzzing Tiaria. Very sorry, ma'am, but according to Amelia down below, we have a team in council colors heading right this way after refusing to even talk to her. Oh, are they now? Another false report. I'll show them the little, Tiaria begins muttering before cutting the communication line, and Harriet raises an eyebrow. Well, this is about to get exciting. She notes out loud as she adjusts a few things in her drawers and primes a tiny device hidden inside her belt. Harrow's shit button. It will blow her cover if things go completely wrong, but it will get her out alive. She just hopes it doesn't end like Herbert's did. Being down a couple more years sucks when you have so few to spare. The door opens and a dozen different heavily armed, armored, and officially suited-up women enter with a frazzled-looking private stream trailing behind them. She lets out a sneeze, rubs her nose 3 times with the ring finger while excusing herself and taps the desk twice. She gets a nod even as she starts ducking under the desk while poking the call button. Ma'am, they're here, she says in a terrified tone. Oh, they are they? Tiaria demands in a furious huff as she opens the door to her office and stares down a shoulder-mounted railgun with an outraged expression. How dare you? Point that somewhere else. Tiaria. The power armor bedecked woman gets no further as Tiaria grabs the railgun and bends it backwards until it's pointing back at the woman. She didn't even chip the paint on her nails, the private stream exclaims as the very, very young-looking human exclaims while taking off his hat. No, I did not now, Tiaria says, smiling at the little boy before turning back to the others and shrieking, What do you want? Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 14. HFY, Herbert's 100 Harem, and Harriet the Spy. Our communicators are down. His team informs him, and Jurgen checks his. Standard is down, but he's still in contact with his handler. We've been cut off, and there's no telling what axiom trick our hostess will have to stop a teleport. He notes out loud, and there's giggling from atop a nearby building as a dark blue shape laughs at them. I take that to mean that simply warping out is not going to work. Oh? You phrase that oddly, not asking? Not really. It's clear that you do have some kind of plan anyways. Otherwise, your little plan has a huge hole in it. Jurgen replies. Maybe. Maybe I just want some company because the old lady who failed to have a child grew too big to stay near? Did you ever think of that? All Lady asks. And now that you're trying to draw that to my attention, I have sudden doubts. Jurgen says. Oh no, an extension of All Lady exclaims, forming from a tendril, appearing in a street light and swooning, while upside down in an exaggerated expression. However will I survive with the doubts of total strangers after me? I'm sure, tell me, miss, what do you think the odds are I need to use a laser after our conversation? Depends on how hot you like your drinks. She answers. Yeah, I suppose getting a straight answer to a question like that was a pipe dream. Pipe dream? Pipe dream. Odd expression. Do humans have weird dreams if they sleep in pipes? All Lady asks. Tell her that humans have a history with narcotics. Many of them smoked from pipes. See her reaction. His handler tells him. History of drug use, ma'am. Every human culture has something they can stick in a pipe and smoke for some wonderful dreams. Jurgen says, Oh, pipe smoking? I suppose that makes more sense. I suppose it makes sense for the species that is a drug to the galaxy and treats poisons like tasty flavorings to have issues with drugs themselves. All Lady says as her swooning tendril grows a pipe from her mouth and blows some bubbles with it. Still, I do suppose I am stalling a little. I have so much to talk to you about. Let's hurry this along. The nearest building cracks and reshapes to a circular shape with a web of dark blue gel, keeping it all together. The gel then shifts and binds together as it starts channeling axiom, and chunks of the building are repurposed into a walkway. This way, please. Dispatch, Jurgen asks. No portals, but there are hints that the core is in that direction. If she's hostile, then it's the best location to attack her from, but also the near literal heart of her power. Dispatch says, that cavern is a massive spatial distortion, halfway between a portal and a teleport. I can't detect where you'll end up, but we've got Proteon in this setup. She'll need null to sever it, and slobs are one of the more null-sensitive races. All right then, further in then, Jurgen says. That's the spirit, big man. Enter my lady cave. All Lady teases from a body sitting on top of the entrance, way that looks like a little girl made of dark blue gel. You're not honestly thinking about going in there, are you? The Lopen demands. You can stay here, but we need to keep pushing forward for anything to be figured out. Besides, our allies know where we are. If she does something, she can expect to be hit with null and set on fire, Jurgen says loudly enough to be heard. Oh, scary. Fire. Wow, All Lady teases. Solvents, then? Jurgen asks as he steps toward the portal. Some of them are good for digestion. I'm sure we can find some that can digest you. I like a challenge, All Lady cheers. What happened to the whimsical and mysterious routine? You've just seen me heckle you with puppets without once seeing my preferred face. What part of that isn't whimsical? Well, none, I suppose. And you've yet to see my actual face. That's plenty mysterious. Well, technically, yes. So there, whimsical and mysterious, All Lady asserts. Oh my God, woman, Jurgen says even as he walks into the portal, before it slams down behind him to leave him in the hallway alone. His laser is out and firing before the sound of the portal slamming fades, but it merely burns a hole into stone and mortar. You're deep underground now, my little friend. Come, we need to speak. Away from other eyes and ears, Misters Undaunted. Misters? Jurgen asked, stressing the plural. I know at least 2 sets of eyes see through your glasses. We need to talk, now. All Lady states as the dark hallway lights up with blue light to reveal that she's inviting him into a corridor made entirely of her blue gel. Chunks of masonry shift and emerge from below to form a walkway. The short silence that followed Tiaria's bellow is pronounced before Private Stream clears his throat. The Asian features of the young child help make him look a little smaller, but not overly so. Excuse me, ma'am, but something big has happened, and we were indeed sent by the council, see? Private Stream tries to diffuse the situation peacefully as he holds up a badge of office for her to examine. She takes it, sniffs it, raises an eyebrow and then bites it in half and tosses it away before spitting out the piece she tore out with her teeth. A cute fake, but I honestly thought it was made of candy. Get out. I will not be entertaining delusional bully girls who think that just because they can forge a council sigil that they're entitled to do what they want. Do you honestly have no idea who I am and why this is a very, very bad idea? Lady Tyria El Sorana, 483 years of age, Alfar Western Continental, but you have Southern Continental style axiom tattoos for your traditional arts. You are the current head of Galura Finance and Security, a firm with contracts with numerous banks over Centris to provide security in the form of Alfar adepts and vaults specifically designed to prevent axiom-based incursion. Current net worth is roughly... Private Stream starts reading out off of his communicator, and Tyria puts a gentle hand over it. That's enough, young man. Thank you for telling me that you're aware of who I am. Now, why don't you sit down and get out of that silly fake uniform? I'm not sure which one of these mean old ladies put you up to this, but you can stop now, she says, and Private Stream blinks. But miss, I'm really an Undaunted. These are really council security, and you're really in a lot of trouble for teleporting away the other team. Private Stream protests. Now, enough silliness. Matalia, dear, stop hiding behind your desk and take the young man to the nearest waiting room. Find out who his parents are and give them a call. No doubt they're worried sick. Tiaria explains. Ma'am, I'm 28. Very much a child now, please, Matalia. Take the young man from the place of imminent violence. Now. Tiaria's tone goes from sweet and simpering to a sudden and harsh bark that makes Harriet jump a little and then rushes to do it. The moment they're out of the room, they check for listening as she takes him to the guest room nearby. Shit, this is a major problem as it has been used in court more than once to justify resisting council forces, Private Stream states. Downside to a culture full of conspiracy. So long as you put up the right act, you can claim that you honestly thought a malevolent party was trying to hurt you while disguised as another. Harriet agrees. Why isn't she answering her personal communicator? Private Stream asks as he slips his hat back on. She has several, but when working, she locks them in a drawer and ignores them. Official business is for internal company communications only. Everything else can go hang itself as far as she's concerned. Harriet states. All right, psychological profile her. How far is she going to take this? Legally, she's going to push this until it can't be pushed any further, then tie everything up in court like a nightmare. The woman is prickly, easily needled, and a living minefield with a lacy covering. I've infiltrated less vindictive death cults. Harriet states, and Private Stream blinks. Fuck me. It's in the official report, but that's not finished yet and not due for another 3 days. This is relatively new insertion. Harriet states, look, this woman knows how to play a lot of laws and cultural expectations. Now that she's started pretending not to recognize council Sen authority as such, she's going to play it out. All right, the Private Stream says before Harriet gets a call on her communicator. Hello? Hello, Agent. Do you believe that we need something a bit bigger? Herbert asks. Hello, little brother? She teases. Please answer the question. I'm surrounded on all sides by high-ranking women who want to send in the commandos. All right, I can say for certain that there's something up in this area. but I've been here only a short while, so I don't have anything definite. Under normal circumstances, I would say it's not worth blowing my cover and we need some patience. And considering that extremely dangerous metamaterials have been found and your target is one of the individuals potential responsible for its proliferation? Is that what the scan was about? Yes, sorry I can't tell you more over this line in case it's intercepted, but I'll tell you everything face to face when we have you on the Dauntless. So it's worse than my being found, hun? That's bad, Harriet muses. Prep a ghost, but if you don't care about my infiltrating this place any further, I can take her out myself. She's completely dismissed me as anything beyond a paperwork monkey. I'm no threat in her mind. All right, confirmed. Abandon your cover and take the target down. We don't have time to play silly games with overly empowered nitwits. She wants to play dumb? Let's see how dumb she's willing to be with her axiom scrambled. All right, this'll be fun, Harriet says. I've already got what I need for this, so just make sure Private Stream is ready to calm the team here. I don't want to be shot for doing their job. She receives a salute from Private Stream. Copy that. Put an end to this madness, Herbert says. On it, little brother. Please, not now. I'm not helping with this infiltration, Herbert pleads. Just keeping things calm, she says before shutting off the communicator and pocketing it. You know your job? She receives a salute in return. Good. Now play along. They head back to the office, and the moment they open the door, they behold the entire team vanish. The air is thick with the smell of burnt metal, melted plastic, and the ozone tang of recent plasma fire. There is no trace of damage, but the scent is both telling and damning. Stupid criminal fools. Who do they think they're dealing with? Do they think me some fainting little fool? I've accomplished things they can hardly dream of, and they think they can pull some kind of false authority on me? Me! Tiaria fumes. Clearly, whatever they're planning, they can't pull one on you, ma'am. Little Billy here has something to say to you, Tiaria says as she gestures for Private Stream to distract the woman. Oh, of course, Tiaria says, suddenly made of saccharine sweetness again as she crouches down to smile at the child, who suddenly looks bashful. Harriet takes a position to stand behind her. You can talk to me, dear. Your parents are coming for you. They are coming for him, aren't they? Of course they are, ma'am. They were quite concerned. Something is definitely up, miss. You've been right on the ball today. Harriet agrees, and Tiaria looks back towards Private Stream. Of course I am. No one just scans an entire planet and have nothing happen. Isn't that right, little man? She gushes at the child as Harriet slowly, carefully, and yet still quite quickly, draws a special snap-on band. Now, why don't we start with your name, Little? Tiaria begins before gasping as a band snaps around her neck and her axiom scrambles, causing her to stagger. She only has time to turn before Harriet's hand grabs her face and forces her to sleep. The scrambling band is removed and a different band applied that keeps Tiaria asleep and sets her up as a beacon. Target secure. Private Stream chimes out happily and Tiaria vanishes in a teleport. Well done. Thank you. Really, thank you. A good distraction at the right time lets you work a magic that axiom alone can't touch, Harriet says as she rushes into Tiaria's office and pulls out her communicator again. A bit of fiddling and a section slides out to reveal a data jack she plugs in. All right, since stealth has gone bye-bye, it's time to just take what we want and fuck subtle. Private Stream snorts in amusement at that as he quickly pulls out the pieces of a machine gun and assembles it. All right then, I'll watch your six until you're done. Hopefully that crew I was with wasn't put into too bad a situation. As do I now. Hello? What is this? Harriet asks in interest as she sees the computer shift under the control of a hacker on the Dauntless. Looks like a long, long list of false identities and the funds to keep them active. Because the rabbit hole goes ever onward, Private Stream all but cheers. Yes it does, Harriet agrees. As he walks over the emerging walkway in the tunnel all lady is in everything, suddenly shifts as something happens. Is something wrong? Were you expecting further company? I wasn't told there would be, but I didn't get sent to this spire by choice, so others might have taken the forced express route as well. They do look like they've been through it. Oh, what's been going on? Tell me. Tell me, didn't you want to have a proper conversation about it? I can tell you then. Jurgen stalls for time. Oh, of course, that would be so very delightful. You know, for a barely half-clothed guest, you're shockingly well-mannered compared to most, and such a sense of humor and grace. Oh, if only all my guests were so gentile. If we were all so well-mannered, then the standards would simply be different. Then where would we be? Why, I'd even buy rude by that standard, Jurgen jokes, and the ambient amount of light actually increases as All Lady laughs. Out of Cruel Space into a Wider Galaxy, Part 15. H.H. Herbert's 100 Harem and Harriet the Spy. The tunnel of dark blue gel seems to be leading upwards and upwards, the walkway more a chunky stairwell, as behind him the masonry sink into the gel and then re-emerge in front of him. He climbs what feels to be several floors before cresting at a carpeted floor where a large polished wooden table is on bricks to bring it up to his elevated level. Opposite of it is an ornate and extremely detailed image of a woman in a dark blue gel who wears a dark blue gel gown. "Please, have a seat," she says, and there's enough definition in her face for him to clearly make out a smile. Tendrils holding bottles and tins drop down from above and set the table between them with numerous snacks and drinks. Care for a drink? A snack, perhaps? You're certainly prepared for things, Jurgen notes. Her core is at the edge of the scanning range, but there's something odd with it, beyond its absolutely titanic size, his handler states. "Are you all right, madam?" Jurgen asks. "Pardon?" she asks, and Jurgen taps his glasses. "There is a tiny speaker whispering into my ear from these, and I have sensors on my belt. My friend on the other side tells me that your core is close, but something is different about it. Are you all right?" he says, and all movement in the chamber freezes. The inner light from the gel dims and he can barely make out her silhouette before things start to brighten again as she regains control of herself. "No, I am not, which is why you are here. Madam, I am no doctor. In fact, as a soldier, I dare say that I'm legally about as far away from a doctor as one can be, professionally at least. True, but you're part of an organization with many doctors who can operate in the null and do not require axiom to work," she says. "Madam, what's wrong?" I do not if I can trust you yet. You and yours. I need your measure before I tell you. Your full measure and not just second and third hand accounts," she says. "Hence our little party," Jurgen says. "Indeed. A pleasant little party where I get to know you, where we become friends, and where my every problem may very well be solved without anyone getting hurt. Doesn't that sound wonderful?" "It does, but a party with just two is more a date, I believe," Jurgen says as he relaxes into his seat and examines the nearest bottle. This is a Canador-style wine. Good stuff, if a little on the weak side." "Well, with human guests, I figured I would need something a little sterner than average." "Indeed. So since you want my measure, how do you want to find it? Is there a topic in particular you're interested in? Why is it that you humans have taken a cultural artifact of the Apuk and reversed it as you have? It's so odd. Give you a tail and some horns, and I would mistake you for a very nervous man, and not the downright fearless individual sitting before me." "Sitting before you?" Jurgen asks as he looks around and finds dark blue gel in every direction. "If anything, I'm sitting within you. You surround me on all sides." The question still stands. It does indeed. I was stilling a bit to find the proper words. "Oh? Not having them handed to you?" she asks, and after a moment, Jurgen takes off his glasses and lays them on the table facing her. "Oh? No, my own words. What I am is a member of Titan Squad. As humanity exited cruel space, all kinds of options became available to us for the first time. And one of the oldest stories in every human culture is the idea of a giant or an ogre, an enormous human-like creature of incredible strength, often with low intelligence, but not always. So the very idea of having someone so large on your side, not to mention the fact that other races are in fact this big, means it's practical, because we can have the giant soldiers without all the issues that, well, you know, the issues. Very eloquent, she says with a smile, and he shrugs. Sorry, it wasn't something I debated about philosophically. I was asked if I wanted to be the biggest and most powerful I could be, and I said yes. Well, no, that's not fully true. I asked if it was going to be some kind of drug that could affect me, and I was told it was an axiom technique. So I asked if I could back out at any time and if it was reversible. Then I got the full explanation that I could turn back with ease, and I accepted. Rather harder to turn back with numerous chunks of metal and machinery embedded into your spine. All lady says with a strange emphasis on her words, and Jurgen considers that before leaning forward. Ma'am, is something inside you? The real you and not the extension of your will that is the gel? He asks, and all lady just stares at him for a bit. Then the back wall begins to shift. It slowly turns transparent, and Jurgen stands up in shock as an enormous pitted sphere floats upwards into view. Then it turns. The back half has a massive crater inside it, with numerous black veins all reaching out from a central point. Calm, calm. Must stay calm. All lady is whispering to herself all around him. It feeds on pain and sorrow and misery. Control your mind, control your fate. Jurgen picks up his glasses and puts them back on. Dauntless, are you reading this? That core is easily 20 times the size of the largest on record, his handler states. Clearly, zoom in on the heart of that damage. What is it? What it is setting off all my alerts and I'm getting a call. Hang on, his handler states. Are you all right? Jurgen asks all lady. No, I have not been all right for years, all lady says in a haunted tone. It grows worse if I feel afraid or angry or sad or anything that isn't positive. Joy can push it back, consideration and concern can as well, but any attempt to remove it just makes it worse. I see, and you think that you will need null to stop it from getting worse? Yes, there's also the fact you're very new to the galaxy. Whoever, whatever, or why this was done to me. She shakes her head even as she conceals her core again. Humans had nothing to do with it. You didn't leave some kind of nightmare thing for innocents to be damned with. How long have you been hurt? Years now, and it forces a budding, but doesn't let me. It won't let me. All lady pauses, all the gel shivers, goes still, and she's once again back to normal. Needless to say, I want it out. And you undaunted are the only people that cannot possibly be responsible, and the only people guaranteed to have a way to force it out despite all the axiom weirdness of it. I don't care if it makes it worse. I want it out. But I need to know, is your reputation truly well earned? I'd like to think it is, Jurgen says, but I need more. I need to know. I need to truly know your character before I take your word for it, because my life depends on this, all lady says. All right then, let us continue. Harriet stretches as she's in a more comfortable outfit after being extracted. Not only had Tiaria been involved in whatever the latest madness was, but her recreational criminal activities were legion enough that they were going to be sitting on her for a while. Oh, good riddance to bad rubbish. That simpering voice just got more annoying the more I had to hear it, she says as she passes off her initial report. Right. Now I was promised a debriefing on what the hell is going on. Yeah, and you're getting it with your favorite coffee blend too, the high and innocent voice of Herbert says as he passes in front of her with a tray full of hot drinks and donuts over his head. For some reason, there's a butter holster and a small sealed flask. She follows him into a nearby room and bafflers quickly turn on to keep things quiet. Well, things are serious if you're only telling me in person, she says, and he nods. Yes, ma'am. Check the butter, Herbert says, and she picks up the cover and notes that it's a tri-tight and lead-lined container to completely cut off whatever's in there. Inside is an odd piece of metal roughly the size of a pea. It's vaguely reddish, but it's not the color of blood, but she can only think about blood, and just looking at it makes her feel uncomfortable. She covers it up again and looks towards Herbert before asking the question. How bad? Bad enough that the higher-ups in the know are in complete agreement about not only keeping things secret as they can be, but to also kick every beehive simultaneously. What is it? It's called blood metal. Very imaginative. Yeah, it's created by a brutal axiom technique that causes a person's own axiom presence to turn on them and torture them to death. That little piece you saw? It takes about 20 people to produce that, all dying horribly. Jesus, we found enough for over 15 billion people, he says, and she stares at him. Yeah, that'd do it, she says. Or at least we thought so. Don't do the roller coaster thing. Just give it all to me. All right, the bare bones is that we stumbled into an operation that was mass-producing blood metal without murder. Just owning the stuff without intending to destroy it somehow is illegal. This stuff is so rare no one really knows what it can do, and we had evidence to think that there may be other hidden areas with more of it. We were right, but they were weird, acting like antenna. Why would they need antenna? The mass production method requires a seed of blood metal to start, a sort of dirty amniotic fluid that no proper cloner would use outside an emergency and fear. Fear? She asks. Put the blood metal in the flash. It has the fluid in it. Then run some axiom through it, and we both will feel fear on top of the thing getting a little bigger, he says, and she stares at him for a moment before unscrewing the top of the flask and sniffing. It smells. It smells like a dirty hospital. The fluid inside is a piss yellow and has little bits in it. She then uncovers the small pea of blood metal and drops it in. She looks towards Herbert, and he nods. She runs axiom through and jumps as her everything tightens up, and she suddenly has her needler pistol out. Herbert hasn't drawn a weapon, but he's holding onto the table, and his face is white. She slowly puts the assassination-based weapon slowly away as her heart rate slowly returns to a normal pace. Well, you certainly said it. Holy God, that was awful, she says before glancing into the flask and finding the fluid gone. It's dry? It is, Herbert says before letting out a sigh and slipping into a seat. That sensation never gets easier. So we had antennas of blood metal harvesting the fear of what? Where? Bottom 10 on dozens of spires, Herbert says, and she nods. That's do it. If you want to find a paranoid, you go down there and that's fear by the boatload, she says and then huffs. At least the ones that don't start entire cults and communities around them. Purple perceivers still a problem, in the sense that the crazy Marega girl is gathering as many followers as she is crazy conspiracies, Harriet says. Geez, sorry to hear that. Is there anything else you need to know about things? Dangerous, barely substance was being mass-produced using materials all over Centris. It was done in a new method that does not require torture and death. But that was not known at the beginning, was it? It was not. Right. Yeah, something like this is a cause for a panic. What have you found so far? So far, we found the main mass production area, we think, and the low-level employees and drones that maintain it. Tied its funding back to a con victim who's about to get her assets back, and who has led us to two other higher members, one an Alfar and one a Tret. And Tia Ray is possibly that Alfar. How did you narrow it down? Numerous occasions where our con victim, one Miss Gina Bleat, was in their direct presence. It took a lot of computers a while to narrow down who wasn't accounted for somewhere on Centris during that time. What are the charges going to be? At this moment, there's definitely a murder charge in there. Even if they started from a single basic seed, it required torturing someone to death to get it. Furthermore, there are charges for unlicensed experiments on extremely dangerous substances without a license or proper safety procedures, of which blood metal counts, Herbert says. However, it's going on the higher-ups. Bleat is a victim, the guards are just rental cops, and the janitors and engineers had no idea what they were working with. Blood metal is rare enough that it's reasonable to expect that people have no idea what it is when they see it. Herbert explains and she nods. So what does it do? If this stuff is so hard to create, then what's going on? Why bother making it? It's almost like combining tritite and kutha. It can hold many kinds of effects, but also tears apart hostile effects. Instead of ignoring them like tritite, it's hostile to axiom in a sense, drawing it in and seemingly eating it, almost like a living thing. That's disquieting, Harriet notes. It is. We have no idea what this stuff does to people. It devours and remakes axiom effects constantly, and since a good chunk of non-human biology is based in the axiom itself, then there's not telling what it would do to another species with a piece inside them. To say nothing of the fact that someone figured out a way to mass-produce this stuff, we may know the how, but the big question of why is still very much in need of an answer. And that's on top of the more humane and Safe method requires you to feed it fear and amniotic fluid. I mean, Seriously, that's weird. It is, Herbert says. Yes, it is, kiddo, she teases. Please stop. Then stop playing the part of my little brother or son in infiltration missions. She answers, Would you prefer my desperate spinster aunt? Herbert mocks. It'd be a change of pace, she says, and he snorts in amusement.